but I'm Kathy Schwiff, editor of the Progress Weekly newspaper covering the Caldwells and surrounding towns. Want to thank everyone for participating tonight in the candidates forum for the Caldwell Borough Council, and for all of y'all listening at home. This is being recorded, and we will spread around the link in case you want to pass it on to friends or people who are unable to attend tonight so they could hear what was said. I'm going to introduce everyone, starting with Brett Friedenson, who is a reporter for the Progress, and he is our timekeeper tonight. And he will be letting the candidates know when they have 30 seconds left, and then when it's time to stop. And next, I will introduce the candidates. Let's see. We've got two Ricks on here now. I don't know. That's confusing. Rick Alonso, Barbara Buchner, Frank Rogers, and Christine Schmidt. And then I want to thank very much the League of Women Voters of the Montclair area for hosting this, organizing it, giving us a trained moderator, and that is Donna Ward. Thank you very much, and turning it over to Donna to give you more instructions.
Great. Thank you, Kathy. And again, thank you for that introduction. I'm delighted to be here, and on behalf of the League of Women Voters of the Montclair area, I'd like to welcome all the candidates and all the participants tonight. Before we get started, I'd like to just first read the League's statement on nonpartisanship, which everyone should realize when we do these forums. The League of Women Voters of New Jersey is a nonpartisan political nonprofit that works to empower voters and defend democracy. Founded 100 years ago, we make democracy work by protecting voting rights and encouraging robust participation. Elections and voting are core concerns for the League of Women Voters. Leagues are committed to providing fact-based information about issues and the positions candidates take on those issues to help voters make their own decisions and participate in the electoral process. The League of Women Voters never supports or opposes candidates for office or political parties. Any use of the League name or of footage from the forum in campaign materials, literature, or advertising of any kind, including but not limited to the internet, cable, radio, or television, has not been authorized by the League of Women Voters. As Kathy said, this forum will be recorded and will be posted on the League of Women Voters of the Montclair area YouTube channel and on our website for people to access. The next thing I'd just like to cover, because this is, the candidates for sure want you to know about this, which is how are the 3 ways you can vote in this upcoming election, right? We have, voter registration closes October 12th. So if you know of anyone who hasn't registered to vote, please make sure they register. But for the general election, including the race that these candidates are participating in, you can vote by mail. Registered voters can apply for a vote by mail ballot by following the instructions found on vote.nj.gov or contacting their county clerk. The deadline for that is October 26th. Remember, vote by mail ballots cannot be returned to any early voting location or at any polling place for this election. You have to deliver it by mail or in the ballot box, but not hand it in person. This November, there will also be in-person early voting for the first time. This new option enables all registered voters to cast their ballot in person using a voting machine during a 9-day period prior to Election Day. You can now choose to vote in person when it's most convenient for your schedule. In-person early voting locations will be open Saturday, October 23rd through Sunday, October 31st. The hours will be Monday through Saturday, 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. and Sunday 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. and no appointment is necessary. If you look on our League's website, you can see all the early voting locations in Essex County listed if you want to find them out. And of course, the third way to vote is at your polling place on Election Day. You can vote in person at your polling place from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. on Election Day. And as I said, vote.nj.gov is where you can find voter registration information, any other early voting locations, polling places, et cetera, and more. So after all this, that's the most important thing, that you actually get out and vote. Okay, so with that, As we go along, we're going to start off our forum. And as we go along, participants are welcome to put any questions that you might have in the Q&A, which is at the bottom of your screen. And you're welcome to put in some questions. And if we can get to it at the end, we'll do that. But we do have some prepared questions that have come in, and then we'll start with those. But before we get to that, we're going to first allow each of the candidates to make a 2-minute opening statement. And we're going to first start with Mr. Alonso. Mr. Alonso, would you make your opening statement?
Thank you, League of Women Voters of Montclair Area, and thank you for the progress for putting this forum together. Neighbors and friends, we're facing unprecedented times, not just because of COVID-19, but decisions or lack of leadership and communication that seems to embody how things are run in our current governance, led by an administrator. We look forward to making things together as a unity. However, when we see things take place or actions or non-actions or consequences that have put Caldwell and its residents in a bad predicament presently and in the future. I hope those watching understand the seriousness of this election and how important it is that they have the most experienced candidates elected this November, because they will affect their pockets. If not currently, it also will affect them in the future as well. Before, I've been in Caldwell about 23 years. I love this town. I grew up in Weehawken. It was very city-like. As I moved out here, I wanted to have a more suburban feel with neighbors where you can talk to and be part of, which I've been blessed to have wonderful neighbors and do things together with them on many, many occasions. And it's just a nice, warm family feeling. But as I look around now, I don't see that anymore, unfortunately. I see it turning more and more into Montclair, which is something that I do not want. And that's one of the reasons I'm running. I want to make sure that we give great thought to, I am for development, but it has to be thought process, strategically planned, and people need to be involved and know what's going on. And I think that's a big problem that's happening in town. A lot of people don't know what's going on with the overdevelopment that we're doing and trying to meet the COA credits or requirements and try to utilize the resources that we have, but maybe we need to prioritize those as we move forward. So as we look to gain your vote and your trust, and we go through this process, I'd like you to know that we can do this together. We have the abilities and resources and experiences from both candidates, Barbara and myself, that can make definitely a better place, and we can do better, and we must do better. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Alonso. Ms. Schmidt.
Hi. First of all, I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters for their hard work in promoting democracy and participation. Your organization was instrumental in bringing suffrage to women just over 100 years ago. And it always brings me pleasure to see women taking a seat at the table. Also, I'd like to thank Kathy Schwiff of Progress for making this possible. We need to support our local newspapers now more than ever. My family moved here relatively recently in 2013. And besides our home and neighborhood, which we love, our walkable downtown was one of the most appealing aspects of Caldwell for our family. As the years went by, I saw stores close, and I observed a general downward trend in the look and feel of our downtown. In 2018, I ran on a platform to improve our downtown, improve pedestrian safety, and create better communication for residents. When I first walked into Borough Hall, I was disheartened to see the level of decay left behind by 8 years of Republican leadership. The council chamber ceiling is a patchwork of makeshift plywood patches. Interior walls are crumbling. Recently replaced laminate floors have already buckled. The library ceiling leaks and now has experienced not one, but 2 massive floods. The community center leaks not just from the ceiling, but from the walls. Every single building leaks. Our parking deck was crumbling and has since been demolished because it had become unsafe. I had no idea how neglected our infrastructure was until I stepped up. How would you let the roof on your home leak for 8 years without repairing it? How is that okay? There's a saying, when you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. I'm proud to be in this administration, which is actively working to solve the problems caused by years of neglect and I'm working to make Caldwell better. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Schmidt. Ms. Buchner.
Good evening. I also want to thank the League of Women Voters and the Progress for hosting this. It's a wonderful opportunity for us to get our voices heard. I've been a Caldwell resident for over 45 years, and that includes 4 years when I was a resident student at Caldwell University. So I'm very vested in Caldwell's present and future. When I graduated college, I had to choose where I wanted to live because my family had moved. So I no longer had a hometown. And I felt very at home at Caldwell. I liked the tree-lined streets, the community atmosphere, and our main street. And I found that most people who moved here stayed here. And that was pretty important as well. My family over the years has been very involved in service to the community. My husband was a councilman and mayor for over 12 years. He was a volunteer fireman and involved in all of our children's activities, school, sports, church, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts. I also have been involved. I was in my 30s when I was on the senior advisory board, which I had chuckled when I was asked to be on that. But I felt that our seniors were our backbone and we deserve to give some attention to that. I have 3 basic points that I hope come out during the debate or during the forum. 1 is we need checks and balances. 2, we need smart building, smart planning as far as our COA obligations. And we need to put the reins on overspending. There's certainly a lot to be said under all of those things, but I did get my 30-minute notice and my time is up now.
Thank you, Ms. Buchner. Mr. Rogers.
Yes, thank you. I would also like to thank the League of Women Voters for hosting and Kathy Swift of the Progress for her involvement. I have lived in Caldwell for 29 years with my wife, Maria. We've raised our 5 children here. All our kids went through the public school system. And over the years, I've been involved myself in many activities throughout the community. I have served 3 terms on the council. I'm looking forward to serving another. Over the past 9 years, I have served on practically every committee and board within the borough and have gained valuable experience, which I plan to bring into the next term if I am reelected. There are quite a few major projects on the stove that I would like work hard to see come to fruition. They include the upgrade to the community center, a new municipal complex, solutions to our parking situation, improving the downtown, and upgrading our sewer and water system. I think we have made tremendous progress over the past 3 years, and I want to make sure it continues. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rogers. Thank you for those opening statements, candidates. Now we'll move to the questions, and we're looking for 1-minute responses to these questions. The first question for Mr. Rogers: what is the most meaningful community service that you've been involved in?
I've been involved in the Caldwell Junior Chiefs organization for over 15 years. For 10 years, I was the football director for the youth football program in town. It was an enormous opportunity for me to meet many families from both communities, Caldwell and West Caldwell, and being a high school math teacher and a football, wrestling, and track coach, I've always enjoyed. I spent my whole career working with young men and women, and it was a great opportunity for me to work with all those kids for all those years and really give back to the community. It was very rewarding.
Thank you. Ms. Buchner.
Yes. Same question?
Yes, same question. Oh. What is the most meaningful community service that you've been involved in?
I think when my children were in high school, I was very instrumental in pushing for a swim team at the high school. And we were successful. The team has been successful. The students that are swimmers go on for success too. So I think my leadership to get that established was probably one of the most meaningful things that I've done.
Thank you. Ms. Schmidt. Oh, just unmute yourself.
There we go. It's a tough question. I've done quite a bit in my life. I guess my earliest public service was not in Caldwell. It was in Germany, where I worked in a soup kitchen right after the fall of the Berlin Wall. And it was an amazing experience, full of hope and full of change. Most recently, my public service and community service has been here in Caldwell. One of the most meaningful things I did was helping the Neighbors Brigade that came in to help right as COVID came through. And there were many people who were unable to get out to shop. And I went to Food Town and shopped and filled shopping bags and delivered food to people who were unable to get out. And that was a very meaningful part of helping our community. People were so happy to get that kind of help.
Thank you. Mr. Alonso.
Thank you very much. I've done many works with the recreation department through the softball and basketball league with both my daughters. I've coached them all the way up to the end of 8th grade. I've also contributed a CCD teacher at Notre Dame Church. I've also, one of my biggest accomplishments, which I loved a lot, was I was part of Project Main Street. That was part of beautification of Caldwell. We hung flower baskets. We all teamed together. Didn't matter if it was Republican, Independent, or Democrat. Didn't matter. We all came together for one unity, the beautification of Caldwell. And that was one of the best experiences I say that I've been contributed to this organization here in this town.
Thank you, Mr. Alonso. Moving on to the next question. If you are elected or re-elected to the council, how would you handle Caldwell's future affordable housing obligations? Ms. Schmidt.
That's a big one. Affordable housing is current, and it's not just future. Affordable housing, let me explain, is not the same as low-cost housing. This creates a sliding scale so that people of varying income will be able to afford to live in Caldwell. So, for example, my daughter, who's studying to be a social worker, would be able to afford to live in Caldwell. Otherwise, she would not be able to. My family chose Caldwell because of its financial diversity, and that is such an important thing. 30 seconds. Affordable housing needs smart planning, and that comes through a redevelopment plan where it puts the control under within the control of the governing body, where we can work with developers and make sure that whatever comes through affordable housing is what works for Caldwell, preserves our character, and keeps our neighborhoods as they are.
Thank you. Ms. Buchner.
Hey, so affordable housing is something that is critically needed, but we do need smart planning. We do not need a brick city. We do not need a 9-story building on Bloomfield Avenue, which is outside of our redevelopment plan, which means we would have to amend our redevelopment plan and allow more 9-story buildings than one. So I think that we do have to, and we also do not have to buy property and sell that to developers so that they can meet the obligations. Topology said what we have in place now satisfies our quota because of our density and our lack of available land. It doesn't do the quota. We still have 88 as our quota, but we don't have the available land to be held to 88 today. So we need smart planning to get to that 88.
Thank you. Mr. Rogers.
Yes. Well, the first thing is builder remedy lawsuits, and what we've done over the past 3 years is we put them to bed. By adopting this redevelopment plan, we can control what goes where, and we have a say in it. Planning board and the council. So if we don't like what's being proposed, we have the opportunity to say no and amend it. We've only satisfied so far 35 of our 85 quota. So we still have a 81 quota. So we still have a ways to go.
Thank you. Mr. Alonso.
Yes, you do have an affordable housing compliance that we have to meet, but we also, as the group has stated, we have to think very smart about how we do these things strategically. For example, they built a development on Lane Avenue, which I opposed when I was on the zoning board because there's overdevelopment. If they're looking to get probably 23 COA credits out of that, or affordable housing credits out of that development, when they could have easily have done maybe 2 group homes, because people with disabilities gets 2 credits on COA. So if you would have put 2 group homes with 5 residents in each of those homes, that would have been 20 COA credits. And it would not have been a detriment to Lane Avenue. Those West Caldwell residents live across the street from there. So there's many ways we can look at to tackle this problem, and other municipalities are also looking at these areas as well.
Thank you. Next question, moving on. How do you plan to control taxes? Ms. Buchner.
Well, I think we have to look at everything that we're spending. Right now on the books is $30 million bonding that has already been authorized to go forward with the current mayor and council. I think we have projects there that we should put on hold. We should address the projects that have been started, complete them, and then decide what's in the best interest of Caldwell that will ultimately affect our tax base. The 30 million will ultimately charge us will cost us $1 million a year in repayment. And that's if we stop there, and there'll be other priority projects. So we need to stop, finish what we started, and then assess where we need to go.
Thank you. Mr. Alonso.
Yes, one of the things that we have to look at, obviously, taxes hit everybody's pocket. So we have to make sure that the investments that we make are sound investments, where we get return on our money, or we meet infrastructures. Now, if we have this, again, as Barbara mentioned, we're looking at $34.3 million that we're running into debt for fiscal year next year. So that's going to be $1 million. How are we going to make that up? I don't know. There's $25 million project that's been appropriated, that no one knows what those capital projects are for. I think it's important to let the citizens of Caldwell know where that funding is going to go to, and because those debt obligations are going to hit our taxes.
Thank you. Mr. Rogers.
Yes. First of all, I'd just like to say that our tax increase for this year is 0.21%, and taxes have only increased 3.86% over the last 3 years total. Every one of those projects I mentioned in my opening statement, we are thoroughly investigating alternative ways to pay for these projects. Our goal is to minimize the amount of tax increase and maximize the use of the land in the borough to help offset the taxes so we can bring these projects to fruition.
Thank you. Ms. Schmidt.
Thank you. Just a little bit of clarification. The numbers that Ms. Buchner mentioned, that was an authorization to spend. It wasn't actually spent. An authorization just allows us to go out to bid when we need to go out to bid. Without that authorization, we can't even move forward. So that is not money that has been spent yet. So I want to put everybody at ease. When the money comes to be spent, then that goes before the governing body for public discussion. Without spending taxes, taxes are collected through increasing the tax base. And unless we have new revenue, where do we get that revenue? We get that revenue through development, more homes, increasing the value of what we have in Caldwell already. Taxes are the only way to raise revenue in a community.
Thank you. Moving on to the next question. Plans for several building and improvement projects have been presented at recent council meetings. Which of those or other projects should be done first, which can wait, and which should not be done? We'll start with Mr. Alonso.
Well, one of the things that we have to look at with projects, again, we go back to what is going to be the impact. That's what I'm looking at. So as I mentioned, our colleagues mentioned here that the tax base we only get from revenue, so we need to develop. The problem is with developing, yes, your municipal taxes will be, you have revenue coming in. However, on the other side, you're going to have a tax base that's going to be increased on your education because you're filling the school systems up with individuals more so at a higher capacity. Our school systems right now are full to capacity. So you keep adding to that, there's going to be expenses that we have to make up, expenses we're going to have to do. Maybe future later on, we may have to purchase a school to make the difference in space. So, and if you overcrowd our school systems, the individuals that are there to learning don't get the proper education that they should be entitled to.
Thank you. Ms. Schmidt.
Yeah, well, to Mr. Alonso's point, that is certainly, schools is definitely a question that has come across. In the Builder's Remedy projects, and even on Lane Avenue, we've worked really hard to keep the apartment size down to studios and 1 bedrooms to minimize the impact on the schools. Every community in New Jersey is going through the whole same thing with affordable housing. So which projects do I think are the most important? I would really love to see a municipal building. I would love to see our police department not have to put plastic covers over their equipment whenever it rains. I think they deserve better. And that's a result of deferred maintenance. There's no 9-story building coming up. It is not in the plans. This is just an idea, a concept that we've looked at to increase the possible value of municipal property.
Thank you. Ms. Buchner.
Okay, the project I think that we really need to focus on is the community center and the municipal complex. I have to deviate a second on the 9-story building. They have given the architect, a Caldwell hired architect, the charge to come up with a concept for a 9-story building on that property. They have not yet done that concept, but confirmed 2 weeks ago at a council meeting, it is still on their list. They are still looking to negotiate to buy that property on that corner and then sell the plans and that property and probably the property with the Borough Hall and DPW to a developer. I don't think that's a project we should be getting into. The other project we shouldn't be getting into is the redesign of Bloomfield Avenue. At this time, we have a lot of other projects in the works, and redesigning Bloomfield Avenue should be down a few rungs on that ladder. I don't even necessarily buy into the fact that doing 1-lane roads east and west will decrease traffic in town.
Thank you. Mr. Rogers.
Yes. In response to Mrs. Buchner, I think that the municipal is definitely necessary. I also agree that the community center needs a complete makeover. Having those properties sold and negotiated with the developer would pay for the lion's share of a new municipal complex, a total redo of the whole community center, and parking facilities that will not only accommodate the library, the community center, the municipal complex, but anything, the Oval as well as anything they built there. I want to see the small lot to be continue to be expanded. I think we'll be able to pay for that with revenue brought in by paid parking. I would like to see this done. And most importantly, I think we need to continue to move forward and upgrade our sewer system. Because with all the water, storm water and people tapping their sump pumps into our sewer lines, we need to upgrade the capacity to alleviate some of the backage that's going on down off Passaic Avenue.
Thank you, Mr. Rogers. Moving on to the next question. The council this year approved a bond ordinance totaling $17 million. Did you or would you have supported that? How can Caldwell afford to incur that much debt? Ms. Buchner.
I think I would have to relook at what was included in that 17 million. And so off the top of my head, I would not have approved it because I'm sure there are projects there that do not have to be done now. I don't know, you know, if it was the storm management and the sewer, that would be one thing. But if it's part of the 25 million for other capital projects, which to me is like a blank check, then I would say I would not have voted for it. But I'm not right now sure of the details of that particular ordinance.
Thank you. Mr. Rogers.
As Councilwoman President Schmidt said, I mean, none of that money's been spent yet. And before that money's spent, it will be presented in an open public meeting where the public will have every right to comment on that. And I'll reserve my right to whether approve or disapprove or vote yes or no on any project once I hear what the public has to say, as well as my colleagues.
Thank you. Ms. Schmidt.
Yes, just as my colleague, Councilwoman Rogers said, this is just an appropriation which allows us to go to bid. It allows us to eventually go to the architects and have them design an as-built plan. So that's not money that's been spent. Also, one of the things that Councilman Rogers mentioned is that much of these expenditures, we're planning to have them offset, for example, by selling the property where the current municipal building stands. No guarantee it's going to be 9-story. That's just let's say, the largest possibility. So that's all those things are plans in the works. There's a lot being done, and I can only ask people to stay informed and certainly reach out to us with questions as this evolves.
Thank you, Ms. Schmidt. Mr. Alonso.
Yes, I too would like to know more details of what's going on in that bond before I vote yes or no. I have to see what the impacts are going to be. I have to listen to our constituents and see what their thoughts are, how it would impact them, and go forward from there. Because without having true open communication and feedback from all, the decision could not be made.
Thank you. Moving on to the next question. If elected, will you commit to basing your decisions upon publicly accessible data and commit to answering all questions asked of you on the public record? Ms. Schmidt.
I love this question because this is something that is a big point within our council, something that we speak about often. Every decision we take, we do not take lightly. We spend hours looking into the facts, understanding what's available. We're doing studies, we're hiring consultants. So this is a labor of love. It's a work of research and constant due diligence. Absolutely.
Thank you. Mr. Alonso.
Yes, as we look into any project or any thing that's brought before us, we need to obviously look into the details of what the makeup is and make sure we have the right data and informed data where we can get from outside consultants or expertise involved into the projects that we're looking to do. So it's very important that we all have our say. The information that we're gathering is also exposed to the public so they can have their point of view as well, and see how it may impact them, because we don't know everything. So we might be missing something. So it's very important to make sure that everyone who is involved in the process is aware of what the data is and how we're making decisions so it can be reasonable and defensible.
Thank you. Mr. Rogers.
Yeah, being a math teacher, I'm a big fan of data, and by all means, we need as much as we can get. You know, we need to be as informed as we can get so we can all make the right decision for the borough of Caldwell.
Thank you. Ms. Buchner.
I absolutely would be open and transparent in relying on the data to come to the decisions and to publicly state my decisions. I think we really have to find a way to communicate better with the community and any other entity in making those decisions. And I do know that a newsletter was started in August with the current administration. I've only received 2, there supposedly were 4. I don't know what happened to the other 2, but that's a good start. But we also have to put more into that about what is going on. The one that I got was really not very informative. But I would definitely be open, honest, and transparent with my decisions and relying on the data.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to the next question. What do you think of how problems with the Caldwell Community Center have been handled? Would you have pushed for the center to be reopened sooner? Ms. Buchner.
Okay, the community center is near and dear. I used to swim 5 days a week. I find it more as needed for my health than for my recreation and fellowship. I would be pushing 100% to have it done sooner. And I know there have been a lot of issues, and then COVID hit, and there's issues getting equipment, but I wholeheartedly would be pushing. We took a long time in committee to come to the decision to keep it open. I do think that the administrator and maybe others on the council wanted to close it. I'm glad it's going to open. It's just a matter of, I don't see when it will. We've been told by the end of the year, then we were told in January, then we're told in March. So who knows when we'll actually see it open. But it is a great loss to our town.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Schmidt.
Well, this is a question that has been on my mind since I've come onto council. I've been part of the Community Center Committee since I started. I'll always remember March 13th. That's the day we made the decision to close, and that was due to COVID. And at the same day, we closed the library and the Borough Hall, and it was a very difficult decision. While all that was happening, we knew that the community center was losing money. It was losing membership. It needed a new dehumidifier and heater. The walls were leaking and the locker rooms were in a sorry state. I've been part of the task force, and I am presently part of the advisory board. I am committed to getting that community center back open. I'm a former swim team swimmer and current swimmer, and I can't wait to get back in the pool.
Thank you. Mr. Alonso.
Yes, I think it's very important that we get the community center back open. I think it's one of the major hubs that we have in town, where other municipalities around us do not have a community center, and they use our community center. I think it's important for the seniors to be able to go and seek the health of well fitness that they have using the pool. I believe even the weights department, the weights room down in the lower level was key component to many of our seniors. And also for youth and recreational areas where they had yoga classes for other individuals. I think once we realized that it was not losing money, but I'm glad they did put a committee together and found those findings, and they're opening it up. So I'm very pleased with that.
Thank you, Mr. Alonso. Mr. Rogers.
Yes, as we all hated to see the community center closed. Now I was never a member of the community center, but my input to the council was that we need to keep it open. The pool alone is such a valuable asset for our community, for the swim teams. However, we have a unique opportunity to get it done right this time. We've already fixed the roof. We have to replace the Dectron units for the pool to filter the air. And if we could really we do it right, we could get a redo of the whole thing and make it a nice first-class facility.
Thank you very much. Okay, moving on to the next question. How and where would you provide additional parking in Caldwell? What parking solutions would you suggest? Mr. Alonso.
Well, obviously it's a little complicated because we have a lot of trouble with parking in there. I know they had purchased the Small Avenue property in hopes of doing a parking deck there, and that was brought down. There's limited space that we have in Caldwell. One of the things we could look into working on is obviously the municipal parking lot that we have now, and seeing what we can do there. We could have also done some parking in the area on Roseland Avenue. We could have purchased that property there and done some parking there as well. Obviously, that's been handed over to a developer. But one of the things that makes it complicated is people do not want to walk long distances to get to a downtown area. So we would have to do some type of redevelopment in the Bloomfield area where we can have municipal parking lot in there.
Thank you. Ms. Schmidt.
Yeah, first one correction, the Peelers lot on Roseland Avenue was not handed over to a developer. That building is the result of builder's remedy because the previous administration failed to act on affordable housing. Right now, what we're doing for parking is we're currently resuming collection on meters. The next step is the expansion of the small lot. We've already purchased properties on Small Avenue to allow us to double the parking capacity right in the center of our downtown. We've also made agreements with St. Al's, which makes it, gives us parking during construction. So right across from the Oval when there are activities there. And we're looking forward to having a public-private partnership of some kind at Provost Square to build a larger parking facility at Provost Square for our downtown.
Thank you. Mr. Rogers.
I agree with everything Council President Schmidt just said, and I couldn't have said it any better, but I would just like to add at the municipal complex where there will be no 9-story building because I'm not going to allow that to happen. We will have a parking facility that will satisfy all those entities in that space.
Thank you. Ms. Buchner.
I agree that the current municipal building and the DPW area behind could definitely be utilized for a parking facility. We also have to look around town and see where parking that exists now could be enhanced, made better, and try to spread the parking throughout the town, because if everything is up on Small and Provost, that doesn't help the people that want to go to the businesses down by Academy and Elizabeth. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to the next question. Police departments have faced a lot of criticism in the past years. Do you think changes need to be made in the Caldwell Police Department? Mr. Rogers.
I've been the head of public safety for the last 2 years, and I just want to say that I am completely and utterly proud and amazed of our police chief and our police officers. Tremendous job they do day in and day out. They are constantly being trained and retrained and trained again. We just opened up the rank of captain with Mr. D'Angelo, and he's heading up training for all our officers to meet the needs of the present needs and any other issues that might occur.
Thank you. Ms. Buchner.
I think our police department does a fantastic job. They always have. We have in the past had 22 or 24 cops. We have only 18 as I hear now. So I certainly think they could use some assistance there, but I really don't think any great change needs to be done with our police department. Training is always good. And with some of the recent, I guess, incidences of camaraderie or lack thereof, that could probably be addressed in training. But overall, I think our cops are fabulous.
Thank you. Ms. Schmidt.
Yeah, I had the honor of interviewing many of our police officers for the most recent promotions, and I can't tell you how impressed I was with each and every one of them. They are passionate about what they do. One of the things that many of them spoke about is they would love to have more opportunities to get out in the community. So when we had Porch Fest on September 18th, they decided to get out there on bicycles and patrol the neighborhoods throughout, where all the bands were playing. And it was a great experience for our police and all our residents. Also, one of the things I've been working with is Caldwell University, and we're trying to get our police to interact more, coffee with the cop events post-COVID when we can do that. So our police can also connect with that community, and also we had cones with the cop at Gelati's. So all these things, the more the police get out there with our friends and neighbors, the more they're appreciated.
Thank you. Mr. Alonso.
Yes, thank you. Actually, I come from a family of police officers. My brother was a detective, he's a retired detective, and so was his wife. And my brother-in-law is a police officer as well. So it's very dear to me. The Caldwell police officers and the chief have done a fantastic job. And I would, for me, I would, obviously need more help, I think. I mean, 18 police officers right now. I'd like to see that go up a little bit more to give them some help. I mean, we're having some issues, obviously, as you know, in our town with people breaking into cars. And it would be nice to have them patrolling a little bit more and not have to lock your doors at night.
Thank you. Moving on to the next question. What is the biggest change in Caldwell that you would push for if elected or re-elected to the council? Ms. Schmidt.
Oh, it's one of the things I ran on when back in 2018. I would love to see our downtown be revitalized. How do we do that? Part of that process is through redevelopment. Many of the owners of buildings in our downtown are absentee owners, and they really don't care about our downtown, and they don't care about their buildings. They don't maintain them. So that's one thing. Another part of that process, and I mentioned Caldwell University before, I would love to find a way to make our downtown more appealing for our students. For example, one thing I've been working for is to get a university bookstore in our downtown. So it's all about the downtown, revitalize it, bring some energy back. I'd love to see more outdoor dining as we had during COVID, things like that.
Thank you. Mr. Rogers.
Until recently, you wouldn't have thought this was an issue, but with these storms we've had over the last 2 or 3 years, it's obviously that storm water is starting to rear its ugly head in Caldwell. And I really want to, we have a study proposed. I really want to investigate this issue because some of our residents are really getting beat up with the rain, with the flooding in their basements. So this is something I would really like to see looked into and give them some kind of relief or resolve the situation.
Thank you. Mr. Alonso.
Yeah, I actually agree with Mr. Rogers. I mean, one of the things that I've been impacted myself with the storm drains and the water, I happen to live close by a creek, and I've had my basement flooded. I've seen, I mean, there's actual rivers. It looks like the rivers flowing down my driveway when they overflow, which this didn't happen about 5 or 6 years ago. So I understand, firsthand the need to look into the sewer system or storm systems to see what is happening and have a study created on that. But I'm also, on top of that, I would love to see a revitalized downtown. That was one of the reasons why I joined Project Main Street, is the beautification of our town. I've also created, several years ago, was 10% discounts for seniors and for the college students. And I went to each store out of pocket and created a foundation where they can log into and look at the 10% discounts for purchases on any of their items they purchased. Unfortunately, I never took off the way I would have liked to have, but having Caldwell College, we are a university college town, and we don't really see that. Most of the residents, Caldwell students, zip in and they zip out, but they don't really visit our town. We also have Essex Community College down the road, which would be great to revitalize our downtown so we can get those students to come in as well.
Thank you. Ms. Buchner.
Yeah, I agree with revitalizing our downtown, but I don't think we have to do it by redesigning Bloomfield Avenue. That won't change the actual businesses and things like that. So I think we have to get those businesses more interested, involved. When the stores do open up, get some drawing businesses, things that will draw people to town. We do have a lot of pizza and hair salons, nail salons. We need to find a way to make Caldwell viable for other businesses to come to town. And we do have a couple of new ones over the last few years, so we need to build on that and get our downtown a little bit back together.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to the next question. What do you think of Caldwell's new redevelopment plan and process? Should so much power over development rest with the council rather than the planning board as in the past? Mr. Alonso.
Yeah, as one who's worked in, was part of membership of the zoning board, I believe that the planning board should have the power back. The council, you know, they don't know or understand fully what the planning issues are and how they should redevelop it more so than the planning board. They've always been the advocates for our residents and people coming up with different projects. And they've been I would say, very instrumental in the development of a lot of the Caldwell areas. So I would go back and switch that over and make the planning board viable again.
Thank you. Ms. Schmidt. Oh, you're muted. Sorry.
Sorry. The redevelopment plan is an 86-page document. Page 54 specifically outlines all the powers of the governing body. But within that, we do turn to the planning board for important studies. So for example, for Lane Avenue, the planning board really put the developers' feet to the fire. And with that information from the planning board, we were able to finalize a design that was good or better for our community than what was first out there. So it's a process, it's complex. I suggest everybody read it.
Thank you. Ms. Buchner.
I think the planning board does need to get back some of its decision powers, because currently, if a developer comes with a proposal, the mayor and council either approve it or not. And then it's like 90% done. And the planning board's job is just to review the site plan, make sure there's the right amount of parking, the right lighting or whatever. And I don't think that they have an appropriate decision-making power. So I do think more needs to balance there. And I know the redevelopment plan covers the powers that be, but that has been changed. The redevelopment plan seems to be able to be amended quite easily. So that could be amended as well, I'm sure.
Thank you. Mr. Rogers.
I've served on the planning board for the last 2 years. I remember a 2-hour meeting on a Saturday afternoon, one of 3 or 4 that we had in the public about the Lane Avenue project. And I know that, as Christine said, the planning board did hold the developers' feet to the fire. There were so many concessions made on that project. And I think the planning board is extremely valuable advisory resource, but I think the ultimate decision should go with the elected officials.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to the next question. What types of businesses or developments would you like to see in Caldwell? Ms. Schmidt.
Well, as I mentioned before, I would really love to see a bookstore from Caldwell University to draw our students in. I would like to see a more diversity in our businesses. It's an interesting question. We have bike land that's coming in that's actually moving onto Park Avenue. And that's also part of redevelopment. And it's kind of exciting to see bike land on a side street, which is more accessible to people who are actually riding bicycles. So we're doing a lot. But, you know, as Ms. Buchner said, I'd like to see a little bit more than nail salons and pizza parlors, but that comes with our ability to attract good businesses. And through that, we need an attractive downtown. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Alonso.
Yes, I mean, one of our, I would say, benefits or positive things is, yes, we do have a lot of restaurants, but the food is fantastic. People do come to visit our food and eat our food. So that's definitely one of our anchors, I would say. And I think we can build on that. maybe some apparel. If we can get an anchor to come in with apparel, they can bring young and vibrant energy into the downtown. That'd be mostly helpful. I also think that if we give incentives to people who come in and for being patronizing, for being customers that coming in and helping our businesses grow. That's one of the things it's an issue. That's why I tried to bring in there discounting 10% for students, for senior citizens, and we can be very creative. We also, with Project Main Street, we actually had beautification storefronts, and we had a contest, and we were able to use my text to message platform, and people were able to test, and they actually text, and we had actually had a winner. Unfortunately, the person that won the best storefront moved to Montclair, but we can be creative if we come together.
Thank you, Mr. Alonso. Mr. Rogers.
Yes, I would agree that we have a wide range of restaurants with good food, no doubt. Kudos to Jack. It looks like he's going to do a real new job of giving a facelift to Food Town, which I think will be a major improvement. I mean, personally, if I was being selfish, I wouldn't mind having a record shop in town because I do collect records, and something, a little novelty shops like that, a few more of them would be perfect for us.
Thank you. Ms. Buchner.
Yeah, I definitely think that we could use a few, possibly anchor stores. We used to have 2 men's shops in town. We used to have a female clothing store. We used to have a Five and Dime, otherwise known as Grand Variety. So to get some of that diversity would be great. We're not going to see 2 men's stores. The online shopping and the mall shopping has gone down, so there's probably some possibilities, but we do need to try to get people into the stores that we have now that are diverse, like Bloom, which is a female clothing store, and get them to see that businesses can prosper in Caldwell.
Thank you. Okay, moving on then. The next question. How do you think the council should handle its relationship with Caldwell University? Mr. Rogers.
Yes, well, a couple of years ago, we did hold a council meeting there. We had our police there. We engaged with the students to build on a relationship with our police department and our students. I spent some time with the new president up on the campus, and he's more than open to establishing better relationships. And I think Christine has done a good job over the last couple of years of forging a better relationship with the university. You do notice that, at least I've noticed, because I walk around the town a lot more students. I've noticed a lot more students coming into the downtown now than there used to be.
Thank you. Mr. Alonso.
Yes, as I said before, we're in the middle, I would say, of between Caldwell University and West Essex Community College, where we could bring in the student body and make it more of a vibrancy. Now, again, doing that would have to get some type of anchor stores, maybe some gaming. I'd like to see that, some gaming apparatuses that they can go in and play, maybe be competitive with the towns. We can maybe do some, have softball game with the Caldwell University, or have basketball, like we used to do it in our towns in Weehawken. And we, police and fire always, got together and they played sports together. And I think through sports, you can bring people together.
Great. Ms. Buchner.
Hey, as a Caldwell University alum, I certainly would like to see a great relationship between the town and the university. I don't know that over the years it has been exceptionally bad. So I think growing upon the relationships as they've grown, as their president now is new and has changed. Also creating opportunities for the students to get internships in town, either in our town, the Borough Hall, or perhaps with the police department, or with some of the other community businesses, so some of the legal places. If we can get them business opportunities for internships, that will draw more to the town as well.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Schmidt.
Well, this is a subject that I've been involved in with since I've started on council. One of the first things I actually did was to create an internship program at Borough Hall. And unfortunately, COVID sort of brought that to a halt, but we're gearing up to get that started again. As Councilman Rogers mentioned, we had a council meeting at Caldwell University, and that was a really great opportunity to have a dialogue with the students to talk about some of their concerns with policing. And we've been working on making Caldwell University students feel more comfortable here in Caldwell and make them feel welcome. We've put Caldwell University banners up and down Bloomfield Avenue. We've held a national night out up at Caldwell University. And we held a coffee with a cop event and one of many more that we'll have at the university.
Great, thank you. Okay, moving on to the next question. How would you make Caldwell friendlier to cyclists and pedestrians? Ms. Buchner.
Okay, that is obviously a hard question. And I know Christine has started a program on some of the side streets where, you know, where drivers are supposed to make sure they're giving space to the cyclists, et cetera. What's hard is our main streets. We can't do much on Bloomfield Avenue, on Roseland Avenue to create safe paths. So I really don't know what we could do to enhance the unfortunate situation we have given the way our streets are.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Rogers.
Like I said before, I walk a lot all over town, and yes, Bloomfield Avenue is tough, and especially that area where Westville, Roseland, and Bloomfield Avenue all meet. That's a nasty intersection, and we're looking at a plan to maybe redo that intersection to make it safer. Change the light frequency, give people more time to cross, and likewise down by Gould and Washburn, it's very tough to cross there. Of course, you should really walk down the Central to cross, but you know how people are. They're not going to walk down to the light. They want to cross in the middle of the street. So again, that is a tough situation.
Thank you. Mr. Alonso.
Yes, I mean, Bloomfield in itself is basically a 4-lane highway most times. You know, it's very difficult to be able to put a bicycle lane there, but we can look at improving areas outside of Bloomfield area where we can create safe environments where bicyclists can go freely around the perimeters of Bloomfield Avenue. Because it's very difficult, as I said, to be able to create a bike lane per se on Bloomfield Avenue, especially when it's a county road, and it's just not really possible, I don't see.
Thank you. Ms. Schmidt.
Yeah, this is something that I've been working on for a while. Early on council, I participated in an NJ Department of Transportation Safe Routes to School program, and we did a walk and bike survey. I had the honor of having to walk our sidewalks with a walker. This made me become much more proactive about better sidewalks because if you're pushing a stroller or using a walker or having any otherwise abled situation, we need good sidewalks. And as Ms. Buchner said, I have passed a resolution to create share the road arrows on our streets. I think we're still waiting for many of them to be paved, and there will be signage as well to make drivers aware of cyclists. Bloomfield Avenue is a no-go for a bike lane. It's just too hard. And the other thing I'd like to see is bump outs at our intersections, which will make the crossing distance shorter from one side of Bloomfield Avenue to the other.
Thank you. These are all the prepared questions that came in advance of the forum, but I know that there have been some questions that have come in subsequently and also during this forum. Kathy, are there questions?
Yes.
Okay. Why don't you read the question and then I'll call on who's going to answer.
Okay. One of our listeners wants to know, what qualifications, characteristics, and abilities do you think are necessary for the borough administrator in Caldwell?
Okay, we'll start with Ms. Buchner.
Okay, there's certainly the people who are administrators do, I think, obtain a certification for that, which requires several courses and things like that. I think our administrator needs to be able to work with the mayor and council and not necessarily run the mayor and council. And I think they also do need to be familiar with the laws of New Jersey, financial parameters, and what's legal as far as zoning or planning. And again, they need to be able to work with a varied council.
Thank you. Mr. Alonso.
Yeah, I mean, the borough administrator is really the one you lean on for many things. I mean, they're running the operations of the town. They were supposed to, give council advice to the governing body, not dictate what happens with the governing body. So those are big differentials between the two. Having a strong town, I would go back and say our borough administrator is part-time. I would like to see a full-time position there as we go into this redevelopment and expansion of again, multiple million-dollar projects. It would be nice to have someone with the skill set and experience who's handled such a renovation in other townships, on our side, and they're 40 hours a week.
Thank you. Ms. Schmidt.
Yeah, well, the job of the borough administrator is basically to put into action the ideas of the governing body. The other job is to run the day-to-day functions, personnel, making sure DPW gets out there. So there are a lot of jobs for the borough administrator, much more than I ever imagined before stepping in. Because the governing body, the borough administrator is doing all this work, the governing body often looks to the borough administrator. As Mr. Alonso said, we look to the administrator for advice. How can we do this? So you need somebody who's highly qualified, who has a lot of knowledge of all different things in running a town. Experience comes through, and the other thing is connections, knowing who to talk to, how to find the best person to do the best job.
Thank you. Mr. Rogers.
Again, we all have our careers, and we're not in the borough hall all day, every day. So we need somebody that's going to run the town. Like Christine says, we have ideas, we have a direction, we have a vision of where we want the borough to go, and we impart that direction and vision on our borough administrator. And he needs a vast amount of experience and know-how to navigate all the curves, turns, to help us and advise us and get done what's needed to get done.
Thank you. Next question, Kathy.
Yes, another listener is asking, where does each candidate stand on the proposal to change Bloomfield Avenue to one lane each way? Are you for or against that proposal?
Mr. Alonso.
Okay, for me, I'm definitely opposed to such a adventure. One of the things that I can see, I had a conversation with traffic, say the administrator on we had the street fair. So he had a display booth that they showed, had pictures of what it would look like. I asked him, I know he had mentioned that, as Mr. Rogers mentioned, that 30% of traffic makes a left turn on Roseland Avenue. And they want to make that obviously flow a little bit better. But by doing so, by creating one lane on both sides of Bloomfield Avenue, you're going to diverse all the traffic divert, excuse me, all the traffic to the left and to the right of Bloomfield Avenue, which will go by go down Westville, which if you hit Westfield, you have 3 schools over there. You have middle school, Jefferson's, and you have the high school, which can be very dangerous. And for any of our residents crossing there, especially the students going to school. And then on the other flip side of Bloomfield Avenue, you have a congestion area. Even on Hatfield, we had trouble a couple of years ago installing 2 stop signs on Hatfield Street. I can see that backing up completely. And you also because people are going to avoid Bloomfield Avenue as much as possible. So I would not be opposed to anything like that.
Thank you. Ms. Schmidt.
Well, the project is appealing to me because, as I mentioned before, for our downtown, we need to try to attract businesses and patrons to our downtown if we want to revitalize it. As it stands now, we have a highway running through our downtown. It's not our home, it's a highway. So, and most people who are barreling through Bloomfield Avenue have no intention to even stop and shop or look at even any of our stores. So it would be nice to have, let's say, a more civilized pattern of traffic going down Bloomfield Avenue. That being said, it's a process. We're exploring things. And rather than just saying, no, we won't do it, we've hired a consultant and we're looking at all the options, and at least perhaps it won't be exactly what's proposed, but maybe hopefully an improvement to the quality of life in our downtown.
Thank you. Ms. Buchner.
Yeah, well, I think the renderings that I've seen look wonderful, and it really looks like, wow, if that could work. But I don't think 1 lane east and west is in our best interest. I do think the traffic will start to go off Bloomfield Avenue to the side roads. And I jokingly said to someone, the realtors will have to change their advertising about quiet street because we won't have any. They will all be through streets. And so I'm in general not in favor of it, but I'm willing to hear more.
Thank you. Mr. Rogers.
The whole project, this is very preliminary. So there's going to be public meetings for comment and input. I want to wait to see how those meetings go. I want to see what the plan looks like, not just some grandiose rendition. I want to see what the exact plan looks like before I make my decision. I am in favor. Something has to be done, no doubt. But I want to see what the public has to say about it, and then I want to see what it looks like.
Thank you.
Can I just quickly add a public service announcement? On next Tuesday, the Caldwell Council will have a presentation on the traffic flow related to that redesign. So anyone who's on here now, if you want to hear more, go to the council meeting on Tuesday.
Great, thank you. Kathy, I think we have time for one more question before closing statements. Is there anything else? Any other questions?
Yes, I can give you one more.
Okay.
1 second. Okay, this questioner is asking in 1 word only, if you can each candidate state 1 character trait that personifies them?
Ah, okay. Ms. Schmidt.
Persistent.
Good. Ms. Buchner.
Open.
Mr. Rogers.
Diligent.
Mr. Alonso.
Servant leader.
Thank you very much. Okay, I think that's all the questions, and we crammed a lot of questions into this session, which was terrific. Now I'd like to turn to 2-minute closing statements. And I'd first like to start with Mr. Rogers.
Thank you, Donna. In closing, I want to thank the residents of Caldwell for putting their trust and faith in me. I am grateful for the opportunity to serve, and I look forward to 3 more years of doing just that, serving the residents and making our great community a better place.
Thank you. Ms. Buchner.
And thank you to the League of Women Voters and the Progress for hosting this. There's one item that didn't come up in the questions that I thought might have, was on communication. And so I do want to say that we're part of the West Essex community. We need to improve our communications with the West Essex community before there's any kind of an issue, such as decoupling agreements between us and West Caldwell, which has been on the table. So by West Caldwell. So anyway, if elected, you have my total commitment to make the mayor council system work, to be your eyes and ears. And I'm willing to work with anyone on the council who wants a better Caldwell. We do not need a redesigned Caldwell, but there's always room for improvement. So we can always be looking for a better Caldwell.
Thank you. Ms. Schmidt.
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank the organizers and also thank everybody who's spent some time on their evening to come and watch this. And I'd like to stress that local elections are so important. Local elections are where things happen that affect you in this level. Caldwell's my full-time job. I've just got 2 minutes to talk about everything I've been doing for 3 years. It has been such a pleasure, and I really hope to continue doing this work. I've been liaison to the Library Board of Trustees, chair of the Community Center Committee. I'm on the Personnel and Communications Committee, the Mayor's Advisory Board on Senior Services. I've created and write the online newsletter, the first one ever. Sorry, it hasn't been satisfactory to Ms. Buchner. I will strive to do better. I've helped Project Main Street come back from dormancy. I've worked with Caldwell University. I've built and organized a task force and the advisory board for the community center. And I've been honored to be voted council president by my peers for 2 years in a row. In my spare time, I've rewritten ordinances for snow removal, signage, and certificates of occupancy. And I've donated most of my council salary back to the community. All that said, I'm a relatively newbie here in Caldwell, but my family chose Caldwell. I work full-time for this community, and I sure hope that voters will give me an opportunity to continue my work.
Thank you. Mr. Alonso.
Yes, I want to thank the League of Women Voters and the Progress for creating this forum where we can all speak and let ourselves be heard. I want to thank those who have been patiently watching us and intrigued and handing in their questions. We really appreciate it. I mean, I think we face really some strong times right now where decision-making, communication is very critical, especially when we look at our relationships, as Barbara mentioned, with West Caldwell. You know, returning phone calls, emails, working on agreements, not reneging on agreements is something that we should be doing. I think, you know, and also, you know, handling our business we have with Roseland in a proper way. I think, you know, if I'm lucky enough to be elected, I'll give, you know, 110% to everything that I have to give my experience in business, in operations, in project management to the borough for the betterment of for the citizens of Caldwell.
Thank you very much. And Kathy, I can say, I think this has been an extremely cordial and informative forum. And I want to thank you candidates for making yourselves available to do this. It's so important that your voters be allowed to see, get to know you, get to know your positions on these issues. I thought the questions were excellent. Thank you, Kathy, and the rest of the Progress staff for organizing this. And it's been a pleasure for us to be a part of it. And of course, I wish the candidates all the best of luck come November 2nd. Kathy, do you want to say anything?
Thank you.
I just want to put in a thank you to Brett because timekeeping is a thankless job, and I appreciate you staying on it the whole time. And thank you, candidates, for joining us. Thank you, audience, for joining us. Thank you, Donna, for doing all the moderating. And if anybody's interested, we have a similar forum like this for the West Caldwell Council candidates next Thursday. If you're interested in what's happening with the neighbors, there are 4 candidates running for 2 spots on that council as well. Great. Thank you.
Thank everyone and wish you a very good evening. Good night.
Thank you. You too.
Good night.
Bye. Thank you.
Hey, everybody. Thank you.